As you can see in the title and in the thumbnail, I titled it When a Scientist Talks to an Ideologue. But I have imagery of ideologues behind Neil deGrasse Tyson and imagery of the universe behind Ben Shapiro. That was done on purpose because when listening to this conversation, Ben Shapiro, the ideologue, seems to be more fact-based and science-based, and Neil deGrasse Tyson, the scientist, seemed to be more of an ideologue in this conversation.
It seems like the left is militating against the advent of science. One of those areas is the area of transgenderism. The argument that is typically made by gender theorists is that gender is entirely separate from sex. You've seen the argument made that it makes no difference on average if men are stronger than women are, and that if we were to allow transgender women to compete with non-transgender women, then this would somehow not disadvantage biological women. And this seems to me absolutely ascientific, that if we're actually going to have a discussion about gender and sex, that should be based in data, which suggests that mammals are in fact binary in terms of their sex, unless you have intersex birth defects typically, or genetic defects.
I'm happy to opine on this. This only matters because today we segregate nearly all sports by gender. Otherwise, why do you even give a shit?
Now, I always say whenever someone makes the why do you care argument, they either have lost the argument or they're avoiding or deflecting from just simply dealing with what someone has said. That's never an acceptable question, especially from a scientist. That's why, worded it tongue in cheek when a scientist talks to an ideologue. A scientist should care about what's true and what's not true. And I know Neil deGrasse Tyson does. I actually have a lot of respect for Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'll get into those reasons a little later. However, that's not the question of a scientist. Why do you care? Ben Shapiro was talking about what's true and what's not true.
It's what someone identifies with. So we live in a free country and with consenting adults and people free expression of who and what they are.
Man, on adult level, I agree with you. I think it does matter what you teach the children.
Saying. And so there's the matrix of
an important thing that Ben Shapiro slipped in there that you probably didn't hear. He said, you shouldn't care what somebody does with their personal life, but we should care what we teach children, particularly in the schools.
What you are biologically, how you express yourself, who you choose as a sexual partner. If we actually live in a free country, as we tell ourselves, people's freedom to behave in any of those ways should not concern you at all. Nor are they requiring that you behave that way. Okay? This is for their own freedoms, because we live in a free country.
Right now, children are being taught about the quote-unquote gender spectrum, which is not scientifically based. That is a theory-based idea.
No, wait, hold on. People express themselves on a spectrum. So you learn that.
That's a social point, not a scientific point. Meaning we express ourselves
hold on.
based in different languages. Is that something you teach in science class, or is that something that you teach when you're teaching language?
So whether the fact that people want to express themselves on a spectrum, on a gender spectrum, whether that fact is something you want to put in a sociology class or in a science class, maybe that remains to be determined. But it is a real fact about real society.
Well, of course, nobody's denying that people identify how they want to identify.
So
the question is, what is the relationship of that to biology? Meaning that the argument is made that trans women are women, for example. And what that seems to mean is that trans women are identical to women. Now, if people want to say trans women are not biological women, obviously that is the case. But people don't seem to want to say that, although that is obviously scientifically true. Trans women are not biological women. Biological women are biological women.
But where are you going with this? What are you trying to accomplish by asking yourself, is it science or is it not science? It's people in society.
But this
Neil deGrasse Tyson keeps going back to, but what is your agenda? What are you going to do with this information? And I understand why he's doing that. Scientists are in a rock and a hard place, because if they find something out, if they discover something, they have to worry about what other people are going to do with it. When Albert Einstein figured out E equals MC squared, he knew that some idiot is going to use that information to make an atomic bomb, which they did. And he struggled with whether or not that information should be released. So scientists are in a situation where if they say no, it's not biological at all, or they just draw a hard scientific line in the sand, then the ideologues are going to get a hold of it and then they're going to do something with it. He's concerned that rights are going to be violated. So he doesn't want to say what's absolutely true scientifically. And that's a place that no scientist wants to be, in that seat where you say it's all about truth. Scientists are the original facts over feelings people. They are the original facts over feelings. But you can hear and see it just in the whole body language, where he doesn't want to state an absolute fact because he's concerned with someone like Ben Shapiro, which has an audience of millions of people, are going to do with those facts when you have a scientist on record stating those facts.
But this is a perfect example of an area where suddenly it doesn't matter to say things that are just true. Like, why is it bad or wrong to point out?
I have another way to approach this. I care what is objectively true in the world as a scientist. But let me not say even as a scientist. I just simply care what is objectively true. And science happens to be a pretty potent path to invoke, to find out what is true. And so if people express themselves on a gender spectrum, and that is an actual thing in an actual society, if we have not fully explained that scientifically, that's an interesting frontier to study. If you want to say it's only sociological, then it's the purview of the social sciences. I don't care who studies it. It's an interesting fact about society that's worth learning about. To fight someone and say it's not biological, it's just your this, it's real and it's there.
Well,
because it's real because it manifests.
But it is real because it manifests. But the question of how to classify manifestation is a scientific question. Meaning,
I think the concern is if you study some topic that's a hot button topic and you bring scientific methods and tools to it, we don't trust. I'm interpreting here. I think we as a society don't trust that people in charge in a free country won't try to legislate something that will constrict people's freedoms in the face of that information. I think that's the fear.
All right. Great discussion from Neil deGrasse Tyson and Ben Shapiro. This is actually over this is like 3 years old. It just somehow popped up on my timeline. Great discussion. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section. I will put the link to this video, the clip that I reviewed, and the full interview. I will put the link to all of that in the description. Check it out for yourself and draw your own conclusions if you haven't seen the full thing. But that's my take on it. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here. Peace. We gone.